All right. All right, can everyone hear me? Yes, awesomeness? Okay. So now it's your turn. All right. So this is your UX is not my UX. So what I'll be going over is why we should be using job stories instead of user stories. And just to give you a context, I'm a little nervous because this is the first time I'm doing this talk. Secondly, I had spicy pad thai. So it's just adding to the perspiration. All right. So like Sean had mentioned, I teach UX design. Just a little bit of background. I actually went to college and university for accounting. So I'm a registered certified accountant. I only did accounting for 3 months. I basically walked out of college with my sheet of paper, did the exam, went to a bank, and I said no. And then I discovered this thing called the web, and then I taught myself HTML and CSS, JavaScript, and lo and behold, I'm here today. All right. So just to get a show of hands, how many people are actually UX designers? How many people are like front-end developers? More front-end developers, all right. How many are back-end, full-stack people? All right. How many are like product managers, project managers, all that kind of stuff? All right. So more front-end developers, more back-end developers, some UX, and then a sprinkling of product managers, which is probably like a good cross-section of what your company is like anyway. All right, so let's get started. So this is the Curiosity Rover. So I like it because it's taking a selfie. So we can actually send something to another planet, have it land, take a selfie, and send it back to us. That's how awesome technology is. Yet we still have this whole issue of like, what should we be using? What should our tool sets be? What framework should we be using for projects? And so on. So I'm going to approach this from scenarios and user interaction and so on. So here's my first slide. What is the scenario that happened here? Why is it there? Did someone bump into the person? Did like someone turn away and then like, lose their grip? Or as in my kids, they're like, hey, I wanted the vanilla. No, I want the vanilla. And the next thing, ice cream is everywhere. So this is why we have to think about the user. Like, how are we going to prevent this accident from happening where the ice cream falls on the sidewalk? You negate the 5-second rule, and then how do you keep everyone happy? Because in this scenario, the user is just really sad. You can thank my 7-year-old daughter for this slide. Okay, so we have to look at the UX tool set. And some of them are kind of antiquated. Some of them are still pretty robust. And this is what we kind of use as a general framework for the UX process. We do some strategy work. What are we building? We do some research. We analyze our data. Then we design stuff. And then we put it into production. How many kind of people use this simplified framework? Do you like it? Maybe. Okay, and then, I'm going to skip the strategy part and just look at the research and analytics part. So what are we doing with the data? We're trying to come up with some sort of outcomes. And we don't really know these outcomes because we're using this sort of homogenized data. It may not be very specific to what we're doing, et cetera, et cetera. And then from all of our user research, we come up with this whole user story. As a type of user, I want some goal so that some reason. How many use this model? All right. How many? So a good example of that is, like, as a shopper, I want to order cheap tickets so I can go on vacation. Sound pretty familiar? Okay. So these are just some of the examples that if you use a job story, what are your results? Okay. So this is Expedia. And I'm not picking on Expedia for that, but what is the best flight for the person to take? Well, the top one is actually advertising. Because what they're trying to do is they're trying to get you to buy a flight and a hotel, but you just want a flight. So technically the second one down is the best one. And then price-wise, the third one is the best one, but it has 2 stops, so you have to go from Toronto to Miami to Charlotte, and then you get to go to your beach vacation. But it's cheap, right? And then the other one is, and then you have to also, for the third one, you're traveling for 21 hours. How many people want to do that to save like $100 roughly? All right, one person. Okay, so you're saving roughly $100. You're blowing 2 days out of your vacation in travel because you got to fly to Miami, stay overnight, and then fly to Charlotte. So it's kind of hard to read through all that kind of information. The other is this is Air Canada's site, and they kind of do a little bit better job. They tell you the duration, the cost, and so on. But they're not really taking into account how people travel and the kind of decision-making process that they have. So this is a Hipmunk. And one of the things they do is they allow you to sort by this agony button. So they take the price, your flight time, and what time you have to wake up to be at the airport, how long your layovers are going to be, and then they put this all together for you. And if I can just get there, here we go. So I just put in some stuff, and I think this is really interesting because what it allows you to do is if you're traveling with your kids, I'm willing to pay a premium for them not to scream for 4 hours on the plane. How many people are willing to pay a premium? See? Parents go up, hands go up. Everyone else is like, kids, what the hell are those? So this is part of the UX. So people are starting to think about contextualizing the user experience and what kind of data you want to provide for them and so on. And another sort of thing that's happening, I got to go back to here, is this is Hotels Tonight. And what they've done is they've actually started kind of going like, hey, you want a luxe hotel? Do you want a hipster hotel? Do you want a solid service hotel? And this is sort of what they're trying to play into. So if you go to their website, there's a montage of imagery, plan less, escape more. I want to escape. How many people want to escape? After a crazy project, the last thing you want to do is have to think about, while you're pushing the final product to the server, you're quickly looking, where can I escape to? And one of the things they also started to do is they actually vet the hotels based on their team from Hotels Tonight going out and actually sort of test marketing the hotels. So I used Hotels Tonight, and I had choice between 2 hotels. They're both in the hipster category. And one had coffee bar, and the other one said coffee bar. So the first thing I do in the morning is I need coffee. How many people need coffee first thing in the morning? Right? I'm actually waiting for coffee to come in aerosol form. So you just inhale it, and you're done. Okay, so I went in on Hotels Tonight, booked a hotel. I went to my wife. I'm like, they have a coffee bar. And she's all excited. And then while she wakes up earlier than me because she's a morning person, I am not. She's like, here's the thing from the coffee bar. And I'm like, that's the coffee bar? I'm like, So then I wrote a nasty email to Hotels Tonight, said, you need to differentiate, coffee bar from coffee bar. And they're kind of I don't understand what you mean. No, coffee bar is a bunch of thermoses and little cream cup thingies, and you have to make your own. So while I was writing this nasty email and going, you, if I had gone to the other hotel, I would have had this. And I was like, damn you, Hotels Tonight. And the thing is, the decision was based on $10. So for me, paying the extra $10 a night, I would have been my wife would be like, I'm going to a museum. I'm going to the coffee bar. And then my vacation would have been that much more happier. So this was my user experience. And how it may not be, most people would be like, hey, I'm happy with this. I want this. So when my back and forth with the UX team at Hotels Tonight, they basically said, okay, we're going to say hotel bar, full service coffee shop. So that kind of got added into their description model. So when we use a user story, we're doing the whole like persona, action, expected outcome. So how many again are parents or have kids? How many of your kids fight incessantly? All right. So this is like a typical user story. You're like, as a parent, I want to order pizza online to feed my kids. Pretty straightforward user story, correct? And the other thing is like, because it works on, what I'm saying is this is okay, but it doesn't have why I'm ordering online. So if we look at a job story, it's the situation, the user motivation, and the expected outcome. So this is the reason why I order online. When my parents have hockey practice, or when my kids have hockey practice, I want to feed them quickly so I can prevent after-school hangriness and get them to the arena on time. So this is the motivation factor for me ordering pizza online or using a pizza app. It's not the goal task model that you get in the user story. I'm really like contextualizing and giving you causality for why I'm actually doing this. So, I have kids. They have to go to hockey practice. I have to feed them quickly, prevent hangriness. How many people have experienced hangriness, whether at work, all that? It's awesome dealing with hangriness. So if you have context and causality, you can then look at the motivation and the solution. So a lot of pizza apps, and I use Pizza because they're really close in my neighborhood, I know that I'm going to get the pizza really soon. And the thing that I use the most is the thing on the left-hand side. It's the repeat last order. So as I'm pulling up into the driveway, kids are getting off the bus, I'm hitting that button. Because I know that in 20 minutes, pizza's going to show up at my door. My life will be a thing. But realistically, what should this little repeat last order be for a parent who is dealing with 3 kids? They come off the bus. They're automatically experiencing hangriness. There'll be fisticuffs in the dining room like within minutes. So what should this tell us from a design perspective? How should we design this application? Any guesses? How many people say, make a login page? Because everybody loves a login page, all right? How many people say, like, hey, let's look at my account and see how much money I have in my account so I can actually order the pizza and not have to put in my credit card information? Okay, that's not an important thing. The most important thing on this page or in this application is that repeat last order button. So I'm dealing with angry kids who are about to get into fisticuffs because they're hungry. This is what the app should actually be. Okay? Reorder now. And probably what would even make it better is that if within a specified moment that you have not actually touched the button, it's like, those Alarm Force ads, like, you have launched the pizza ordering app. You have not placed an order. May we help you? And I'm like, yes, please. Because realistically, I'm probably like having one hand on one kid, preventing him from beating up the other kid, while I'm trying to order, like, yes, please send me pizza now, with the other one. And then, what the client would probably go, hey, that's a pretty good idea, but we need a menu system. So that's really like an extreme use case. And a lot of times when we design stuff, we're actually kind of going like, okay, what does the client want? We have these user stories that kind of give us an idea of tasks and the goals that need to be accomplished. So you want to focus on the motivations and then think about the when, why, when, and where. And when you start doing about that, you're starting to get a lot of contextual information into the job story. And you can actually now think about what is the situational situation the user's in, what are their motivations, and what do they actually expect. So you add some contextual information, you talk to real people. You try to avoid using personas, because personas tend to be, are starting to become a little bit too generic. And then what you want to do is add those forces and frictions to the motivations. So my force or friction is I want to prevent hangriness. And hangriness is the one thing that I try to avoid at any cost. I've actually gotten to the point where I actually I've tracked, no, this is how nerdy I am. I've actually tracked when my kids get hangry. And then I've keyed those times into my alarm clock on my phone. And I say, okay, give me 30 minutes before the hangriness zone happens. So one goes off and I go, okay, that's the 7-year-old. Let's go give him a snack. Another one goes off. That's the 9-year-old. Let's give him a snack. And then, the other one goes off. That's the 13-year-old. Give him a snack. And then the next one goes off. And it's this constant battle of I feel like I'm a short order cook half the time. It's here's some carrots. Carrots are up. So this is just a quick example. I already kind of asked who the sort of the makeup of the room. So last summer I worked on a project with a mobile app developer. And so we were thinking about how do we send notifications to the user that a service is either delayed or on time or coming early. So we went through the whole user scenario. We said, you're a mobile app developer, you have access to a smartphone, et cetera, et cetera. You receive your notification, you know that you're going to be able to arrive on work on time. Very familiar user scenario for the most part. So the app developer that I was working with, he was in New York City, and he's like, this doesn't apply to me. And I'm like, okay, wait, you're an app developer. You have access to smartphone. And you need push notifications. And he goes, yes. However, this is the phone I use. Okay, so then we were like, okay, this was, if we had not actually had this person, we would have designed something for this, when in actuality there's this whole trend in Europe and in North America happening called retrophoning, where people are going back to their old phones, like the old Nokia phones. So if you go on eBay right now and you try to get a Nokia 3130, they actually go for astronomical amounts of money. But that's retrophoning. So because of then we had this discussion with him. We're like, okay, so why do you use this phone? What kind of services do you need? And he goes, I still need push notifications. And what ended up happening is we changed one of the elements of the app for smartphone users, and we just built a website where you just type in your phone number and your email. And then we had an SMS server that would send the same messages to the app, push to retrophones like this. But that's something that we would have not necessarily come up with if we actually didn't really talk to the app developer. And like I said, more and more people are going back to these types of phones. Am I going too fast? No? All right. Okay. So again, you have to go back to which users are you designing for? Are you designing for the global user? Or if you look at motivations, pretty much everyone's motivations are roughly the same. And then you don't focus on the who or how, because those are more task-oriented and implementation-oriented. And you look for the why. Why am I pressing that reorder pizza button on my app? And it's because I'm desperate. I don't want fighting in my living room. And part of that is, I think Ron had mentioned earlier, you want to develop this empathy. You actually want to think, what is motivating the user to use our application? What is motivating the user to sign in for our services, and so on. So far, so good? All right. And then you're like, this is mad science. No, it's not. It's just talking with people. And that's the nice thing. So I'm going to go back to the pizza, because this would have been worse if it was before lunch, because everyone's like, yeah, pizza. We're going to order pizza. Okay. So the reorder button. So let's look at motivations for the reorder button. So shout out, what's the motivation for the reorder button? And don't use my example. Okay, I'm lazy. Anything else? Creature of habit. Okay. In a hurry. And what's that? Order accuracy. Yep, I got the same thing. I know that when I press it, I get the same thing. A big order. Yeah, I don't want to sit there on the phone going and this is a true story. I was at a party and we're ordering pizza and someone wanted broccoli, and then we're but I wanted broccoli only on half. And so we're okay, broccoli on half. And then the person, when the pizza came and the person got upset, and I'm like, what's going on? He's like, the broccoli's on the wrong side of the pizza. And I'm like, Problem solved. Yeah, so what I did is after talking to a couple people, one of the main motivators was cravings. So, like habits are one thing, like, Friday is pizza day. So, looking forward to pizza, they walk by the pizza store, they get the smell of the pizza, there's some sort of stimulus, they're looking forward to the taste. The other one was, the lazy part, the want, I don't want to cook, minimal effort, easy, no thought, not difficult to reorder. And this one was the interesting one. I got a lot of emotional eating. And pizza makes me feel better. And I'm like, yes, I relate to you. And, so people are feeling frustrated. It's event-driven. They've had a crappy day at work. Something's happened. They've had an argument with their spouse or loved one, parent or whatnot. Kids have gone crazy in the house. So pizza is like the emotional outlet or the emotional savior for that moment. But if we didn't actually talk to users, we'd probably work on the first two, and we actually wouldn't even come close to addressing the third one. So when you start looking at the motivation for the user, you stop designing in a silo. And this kind of breaks you out of that. So when you're using the job story, the design silo breaks down, and then you actually have more context and causality for what you're designing. Which leads me to this element here, is then you start practicing user interface kung fu. And this is to actually protect the user from themselves. So when I use that reorder button, one of the things that happened was now I have 3 kids who can order at will. So where's my phone? And it's like, hey, I was playing games on it. Oh, by the way, and then ding dong, pizza here. Okay. So we went through this week where we were getting pizza deliveries every day, and only one of them was mine. The rest were all the 3 kids learning how to press the reorder button. So in essence, this is a bad idea. But for a motivational thing, it's a good idea. All right. So we want to protect the user from themselves. Otherwise, we're going to have this, whoops. Uh-oh, it's crashing. Oh. Have this situation. Where's my pizza? Damn you. Where's my cheap flight? I want that cheap flight. Damn you. Where's my class schedule? So on and so on. Where's that important email from my boss telling me I have a raise? So on. Okay. So the one thing you want to remember is everybody generally loves cupcakes, correct? Who doesn't love cupcakes, right? But some people like chocolate, some people like vanilla, some people like sprinkles, some people don't. So, the whole thing is UX is really subjective. And what you want to do is get into that, find out what is that subjective area that we're trying to design for. UX is personal. It's different for everybody. And the way I always explain it is everybody loves cupcakes until they're fired out of a cannon. So there's the actual... How many people would love to have cupcakes fired at them out of a cannon? Okay, see, 1 person out of an entire... 2, 3 maybe. 4. Just so I can say I did it. All right, so I think, did I go too fast? No? Yes? How fast did I go? Uh-oh. Oh my God. I went too fast. All right, sorry. So let me go back and I'll review the job story versus the job user story, and then I'll take some questions, and I apologize for going too fast. So again, we're looking at this persona action expectation model, and this will give you some no context, because all you're doing is you're creating the tasks for the implementation. Can I order pizza online? Yes or no? Can I feed my kids? Yes or no? What am I going to do to implement that? When you go to the job story, you have the situation. You have the motivation. You have the expected outcome. And this then creates context and the causality, which you actually should be designing for. And the more you can design for this situation and find out why users are using your stuff, the better off you are. Does that make sense? Okay? And again, this is why I say my UX is not your UX, because this is why I use the reorder button. You're probably using the reorder button for a different set of reasons. And again, look at your empathy model. How are you understanding what the user does? Talk to real users. Get them to tell you why they're doing certain things. When they tell you those certain things, you'll actually find out that you've covered these two based on your technical user story, but this emotional part is something that you won't experience unless you actually talk to users and so on. And probably shouldn't have had that cappuccino. I'm really sorry. Any questions? Okay, first.
I was going to ask if there's any tools that you would recommend then on gleaning those types of insights from users?
You just have to talk to, like, really, this was all it was. Is I went to the pizzeria, and I said, how many people have you used the reorder button? And they're like, yeah, I'm picking up my order right now. And I said, like, why did you use it? And they gave me, like, some, like, laziness, I don't want to cook, all that kind of stuff. Then I talked to a person at a party, and they're like, oh, yeah, I had a crappy day at work. Pizza makes me feel better. So those kind of little things are what you get. And you won't really get that necessarily from a user survey unless you say, like, other. And most people usually avoid the other or, like, give me a reason for the other. So if you actually talk to users, you're going to get this sort of richer data.
Okay, and can I
Yep, keep going.
second part it then? So let's say in the case, Pizza is my client.
Yep.
And so I maybe don't know who my users, like who I want my users to be. So how would you, as like the UX expert, approach who you go to build the best experience? Who are your users that you're getting?
Well, like if you go to the client, they'll probably say everyone's our client base, and that's where I think the whole UX model starts falling apart, because you can't have this everyone's your user. Realistically, if you think about who's using the app, it's someone who's A, is willing to download it, B, put in all their data, because you can't do it online necessarily, and then put in their credit card information. So how many people are comfortable putting their credit card information into an app? I am. How many other ones? Like 2, 3 more? But realistically, like all of a sudden this number just starts going like ka-chunk, ka-chunk, ka-chunk. And you'll realize that that button is probably used by only that demographic. And the only way to find that out really is just, like I said, go to where the users are. They're in the pizzeria. If you're at a party, you can just say, hey, have you ever ordered anything online? Have you done X, Y, Z? And usually you'll find that people are more likely to give you real answers in that kind of guerrilla user testing than if you send out surveys. I'm trying to think, like when you go to a lot of websites now, they'll have like, hey, do you want to fill out a survey after that? That data is like skewed all over the place, and it doesn't actually provide you any kind of real context. You had a question?
So you said that looking for the persona base and focus more on the job stories. But isn't it having the persona, you may just come up with the pre-order version, and then you're starting?
Well, I think if you really, if you did the survey, you'd have to, sorry. So she was asking if you do the user persona, then you actually would end up with the reorder now button. The one part that I would say is you could probably come up with a reorder button without actually even coming up with a persona. You could just say, hey, let's add a reorder button. Wouldn't it be easy just to go from a UX perspective, like open the app, I got a cheese pizza, extra large last time, let's do it again. How can I make that happen? So that'll probably come out from talking with your developers and your design team more than anything else. But the user persona is kind of like, it's almost too generic at times to actually tell you why people are doing X, Y, and Z. And if you talk to real users, then you actually get the feedback that you want. Yes?
What if the app doesn't exist yet and there are no users?
Ooh. What if the app doesn't exist and there are no users? My thing is kind of like, it's like fashion. Everything that's been designed in fashion has already been kind of done. So more than likely you're designing something that has some kind of relevance to something that's already out there. There isn't really much a difference between ordering pizza, ordering tacos, burritos, and so on. Buying shoes online is no different than buying anything other sports gear online. So there's some kind of commonality that you're going to have, and all you have to really find out is, are you willing to buy something online? Are you willing to download an app that does this service, and so on? So again, you're talking to real people. Does that sort of answer your question? All right. Any other questions? Yes?
Would it be a good idea to have the button grow, calculate the number of times you use it, and then it grows up?
See, that would probably be a good thing. You could actually, like, if you use it once, app says, okay, this person's more likely to use it again if it gets bigger. But eventually, the app just becomes the button. Then the maximum. But then the client will probably go why is our app just a big button? And then why did we pay you? Yeah, and then why did we pay you all this money to make us a button? Might be another sort of aspect of that. The problem with that is that if you start doing something like, if I use these features over and over again, and that feature gets bigger and bigger, it's going to crowd out a feature, and then the client will come back and say, hey, we've been using our app. Where did this go? Or, why is there a second screen now with all the other buttons that we wanted, and we only have this one big button on our screen, and so on. Any other questions? Yes? Like I said, I'm sorry I went fast. I was going by my clock here on my laptop, and I didn't pay attention. But if you want to talk, I can give you some references. Can text you out some references and so on for user stories. What we're finding with user stories is that it gives you a better idea of what to build, rather than just kind of coming up with the tasks and goals. The motivation is really the hard driver. And what we're trying to do now is we're working with a public library in the States, and we're trying to build an app, because now they have the checkout system, where you scan the book, self-checkout. Most people have NFC on their phones, so now we're saying, hey, let's put the NFC into a library app where the person scans their book, and then if you don't touch the book will say, hey, read me, or I'm due back, and so on. So we're trying to come up with because one of the things we got from users was hey, I don't remember when I have to return my book. I ignore the email from the library, that kind of stuff. So we're thinking if we can create a notification system, but that's built into an app, that would help things out. Any other questions? All right, don't drink coffee. All right, so if you want, you can tweet me at Andrew Smyk. I can give you some more background on user or job stories, and then some user research that I've done as well. And that's it. So